Not recording.
Is it to express the politeness and permission or something?
Politeness is one aspect of your right. It's only one aspect of the modal verbs, though. But where do you think the name modal verbs come from? Why is it called modal verbs and not something else?
Because it contains verbs, main verbs.
Huh. But why modal verbs? Like you have names like helping verbs, auxiliary verbs. So modal verbs are also sometimes called the modal auxiliary verbs, right? Why so? So the answer to that question is what you're saying, right? Because they can't act on their own. You cannot use the modal verb on its own in a sentence. You also need what you call as a main verb, right?
Main
So it's
verb.
just like you have it in the case of auxiliary helping verbs. You also have um, we need to use a main verb in order to make the modal verb work, right? So just to begin with a simple example, say I have an example like I can swim, right? If this is my sentence, then what do you have here? You have both, you have modal verb and you also have a main verb. Swim being your main verb and can being your modal verb, right? We'll get into the meaning part a little later, but um, this is how a sentence with a modal verb will look, right? Basic thing. It's not something that you don't understand. But structurally the takeoff is that you cannot have a sentence, a grammatical sentence in English like I can. It, although a lot of people would use it, we see a lot many people using that, but this is not like a good grammatical sentence in English. If someone says I can, right? In conversational English you would hear people using this a lot, as a response to a question. Can someone do this? Yes, I can, right? But this is strictly speaking an incomplete and a grammatically incorrect sentence, right? Because whenever you're using a modal verb, it needs to be followed up with a main verb. That is what would complete your sentence grammatically and make it acceptable, right? So this is how the structure looks. They are not used so. I mean, on its own, it requires a main verb, right? So the first thing you need to keep in mind as far as the grammar part is concerned, modal verb is always in combination with the main verb, right? Now, anything else that you can comment on the structure of model verb? But before we get to the structure, um, what do we use them for? So I think you answered politeness, right? You said politeness is one domain where you. So let's call it domains, not function, right? One of the domains is honorific domains, right? Where you need to show honor, which is also known as politeness in colloquial terms, right? You call it politeness, and if you want to be a little technical, you can call it honorificity. So, domains of use for one of the domains for use would be this honorificity, expression of honorificity, or expression of politeness, or expression of what you also call as formality, right? This is one aspect. Most or say especially some among the modal verbs will have this function, have this work of showing politeness and honorificity. But even those modal verbs, they're going to have other additional functions to perform, right? Other additional expressions to make. That is what we need to look at first, right? So this is what we say, every modal verb, right? Whichever modal verb we are discussing, it has at least two meanings, right? So these are certain pointers that you need to keep in mind, at least two meanings. Okay, when I say at least, it means you can have more than two meanings also, right? There could be overlaps in the meanings as well. But to begin with, every modal verb will have at least two meanings. Okay, and one of the meaning could be of what you talked about as to show politeness, formality, honoricity, and the other meaning would be the actual core meaning. We call it core meaning, right? And additional um, functional meanings, right? Additional meaning. These are not proper terminologies. These are something that I used to teach. So one is the core meaning of the modal verb, and the other one is the additional meaning. So if I take the example of can here, right? The example which we looked at, the sentence I can swim. Um, what is can being used here as? What expression does it? Does it give you any expression of politeness? When I say I can swim, is there any?
No, no, ma'am. It doesn't give the politeness. It gives the
So it gives the core meaning, that means, right? So this sentence can is used to show more of core meaning, but not the formality or politeness or honorificity meaning, right? Now, what is that core meaning for can? What does it show here when I say I can swim? What is it? Core meanings.
chances or possibilities.
Is it I can swim? Is that a possibility?
It is a ability,
It's
It
an
is the
ability.
ability.
It's an
ability to
ability.
swim.
Correct, correct. That's right. So for can, the core meaning is going to be um, that of ability, right? Is there any other place where you use can? Can you give me more functions? So the core meaning is ability, right? So we
Permission.
permission. So can I go home? Okay. So this is what? This is more like a permission. But now, is this a formal permission or is it an informal permission? Can I go home?
Informal.
It's more like a, okay, let's say less formal. Okay, not informal. We'll call it less formal. This is a less formal form of seeking permission, but still this is another modality. So the word I was looking for was modality. If you have watched the lecture, you will also see the lecture using the word modality in that, right? What are modalities? Modalities are different expressions, right? Modes. You know, you, if not modality, you would be familiar with the word mode, right? MODE, mode. Mode means, what does mode mean? What does mode mean? When do we use a word like mode? No?
Mood.
Sorry? What is the plain meaning of the word mode, right? When I say modes of transportation, what do I intend to mean by that? Types or kinds or a
Different
way or a
choices.
yes, choices, or more than that, types, kinds, ways, manners. That's what the word modes mean, right? So modality then is basically different expressions, right? And ability is one such expression, right? So basically, modal verbs are then the verbs which help you express various modalities in a language, right? Uh, or something that helps you show an expression of experience, right? It shows mostly an expression of experience. That is what modal verbs are. Okay, so their task is to basically show you those expressions of experience, right? Uh, among that, can is the first one we'll be discussing, and the core meaning for which is to show ability, right? Now, before we come to the other aspects of what all this can show, we'll firstly look at the core meanings of all the other model auxiliaries, right? And then get back to what other meanings they can show. But since we're already at it, so can has the core meaning of ability. You said can show you what? Less formal permissions, right? What else can show? Less formal permissions. That's one category. Then can show what? Can the
Possibility.
word can show possibility?
It's basically can is basically
Object.
associated with ability, possibility, permission.
So my question is can show possibility? And if it does, can you give me an example?
It can happen. For
Can
example,
happen. It
an
can
event.
happen.
It can happen.
Okay, it can happen. You can take, or something. If you are looking for something that is more solid, you can say it can be very hot during the summers in Chennai. Okay? If you have a sentence like that, can be really hot in the summers in Chennai. This is again possibility, right? Indicating possibility,
So
right?
basically, it's
But
associated with an
Can you be more formal?
sorry, I did not hear both of you. Sridhar, go first.
Can is also kind of connected to an affirmation of certain event, or can we also say that?
No, not really that. This particular function would be for the negative form of can, which is can't, okay, or can't. I think in Indian English mostly people say can't, but can't, right? It can be him or it can be a snake, right? If I have a sentence like that, this is more about certainty, an affirmation, right? When I say it can be a virus, can be a snake, I'm basically giving you a certainty based statement that I am sure that this is not that. Okay. So in the negative form, can be used to express certainty, but not in its affirmative form. Okay, not can. Can in general is not used for affirmation. When
Basically,
you, huh,
sorry. So basically, it is actually the tense or the thing changes based on the position of the sentence where it is.
no, not based on the position. It's based on, see, that is another thing. If you look at the model verbs don't undergo any tense changes, right? They are free from tense. They don't inflect for tense, right? So you can't write canning or canned or anything like that, right? Not just lexically, not just as a word, but even grammatically, these are independent units. They, whatever changes based on the tense and the aspects take place, it only happens on the main verb, is the main verb which takes up that load. Modal verbs do not undergo any inflections for tense or aspectual change. Okay, their duty is only mood, show the mood of the sentence, nothing more than that. Okay,
Thank you.
yeah. So so can less formal permissions can show you possibility, right? Like the sentence that we just looked at. Anything else? And I think we discussed can't also. So can't is can in its negative form, right? Which shows you certainty, right? Certainty. It can be a virus, right? The sentence shows you that the speaker is sure that it is not a virus or it is not a whatever, right? Whatever the sentence is. It can be a snake. Okay, very sure that it's not a snake, something else. Any other function? So these are all secondary functions, right? Point is the core meaning for can would be always to express ability, but in addition to that core meaning, it can have all these other um, modalities, right? Possibility, showing certainty in case it comes in the negative form, showing less formal permissions, right? In certain other cases, right? So these are all additional or secondary meanings of the modal verb can. The core meaning would always be of ability, right? Yeah. Any question? Anyone?
Yeah, ma'am. So, like, if I ask someone for help using can,
Hmm.
it will be the core meaning, right?
No. If you're seeking help, then
Like,
it's
can you help me out here
hmm,
if I ask someone
that's
this?
a request, right? Then that's again like a version of permission, but more like a request. So that doesn't fall under the core meaning. Core meaning is ability. It's like showing that you have the ability to do something or not. Okay, that is the core meaning for the modal verb can. When you're seeking, when you're asking help, then it's basically a request which falls within the domain of, say, formality or permissions, right? Mostly under that.
Ma'am, can it be used to express order? Like, if someone aggressively asks me that, can you be more formal?
Hmm. No,
Then he is
you
ordering
mean
me,
as an
right?
imperative way, right? No, not really. Again, that is also something that would be classified under the formality sector, but not ability, right? Core meaning is always of ability, unless the meaning expressed is of that of ability. It's not the core meaning. Okay. For can, mostly the usage is to show ability, but because there are several possible expressions allowed in a language.
Ma'am, I think you are not audible.
Okay, am I audible? Sorry, guys, I got logged out. There's some internet disconnect from my side. Am I audible? Okay, all right. Like we were discussing, so the core meaning then is going to remain as the one that we discussed, which is ability, right, for can. And for what's the next one? So let's move on from can. Let's say next one is could, right? So just like can had one core meaning and several other additional meanings, could is also going to have a core meaning and then additional meanings, right? So what is the core meaning for could? So if I have like a sentence like could rain, wait a moment. It could rain tonight. Okay. So if this is the sentence, then what does could communicate to us as a core
Possibility.
meaning? Okay, general possibility, right? So be a little cautious with the use of the word possibility, because in modal verbs you have several kinds of possibilities. So there's something called general possibility, something called high possibility, and there's also something called weak possibility, right? We'll discuss weak and high a bit later with a different set of modal verbs. But for could, it is what you refer to as general possibility, right? So anything general, right? We and what do we mean by general? Any idea? What is general possibility?
50-50 chances.
Not even that, it's like we don't know whether high or low, right? Like in the other case, we are not able to make this distinction of high or weak. We just know there is some possibility, that is called general possibility. So we are not accounting for its actual probability of happening or very low probability of happening, right? So nothing of that sort. It's like a very general possibility sort of a thing that you're saying, that it could rain, right? I'm not saying that it will definitely rain, or I'm not even saying that no, it doesn't look like it will rain at all, but I'm saying it could rain generally, right? General possibility. From the looks of it, it could rain. Okay, that's all.
But in that case, from could, once we switch to will, it will rain because
No, that is a different domain. We are not looking at that. That is more, on the prediction level. This is possibility and prediction are two different things, right? Predictions needn't be true, but possibility has some elements of truth value to it. Okay, that's the difference. Okay, just a moment. In case I lose the connection again, I'm just copying the link here so that doesn't, even if we get logged out, I have another is ready. Okay. Okay. Meanwhile, what do you think are the other meanings possible with could? Could be used for politeness?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, right. So the other question, right? Can I go home? I told you this is a less formal way of seeking permission, right? So if I change can to could in the sentence, what happens to it? Could I go home? Could I please go home? Even if please isn't there, say you simply say, could I go home? Then what happens to the sentence? What gets added
More
here?
formal.
Sorry? It becomes more formal, right? It becomes more formal. Yeah, that's right. So, like in the case of certain other modal verbs, could is one of the modal verbs where one of the secondary meaning is to add formality, right? Especially when you want to add high end formality, you use the word could, right? Would is another modal verb where you use, which is used to provide high end formality, right? So this is one of the secondary meaning of giving the high-end formality part. Anything else besides this which you think could can convey as expression, secondary modalities? No? Think about it. How do you use it? So could one is definitely of general possibility. One is to show formality. Any other expressions with could? Nothing that you've heard of in the lecture?
Request.
Requests, yes, you can use it for requests, but even before requests, suggestions, yeah. When you're making suggestions for, something, don't you use the word could there? You could, um, you could call up the police for help. Now, what is this? This is a suggestion, right? Someone is talking to you about something, so you could give this as a sentence of suggestion. So, you could reach out to the police for help, right? This is strictly a sentence that looks like a suggestion, right? You're giving a suggestion to someone. So one of the use of could then is also to show suggestion, right? Remember, I'm reiterating myself. All of these are what? These are all secondary expressions, right? Secondary meanings associated with could. The core meaning is still general possibility. Suggestion, request, everything else is again part of secondary meanings that's associated with could, right? So suggestion, one example is this: you could reach out. Sorry, the two is missing. Reach out to the police for help. Request. How would you have a sentence with request? To show request, that is.
Could I take your pen?
Could I take your pen? Request. Okay, all right. Something better maybe.
Could you switch on the light?
Could you switch on the light? Yes. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so requests, suggestions, general possibility, which is the core meaning, and the formality part is what usually the meanings that the model verb could takes up, right? Now, so can, could. Now, the next one we are going to discuss is, say, let's take up will, since the question on prediction came up. We'll take up will.
Sorry, I have a clarification. When we
Yeah.
use could, we can also use please. Is it mandatory to use please also along, because could itself is a kind of politeness? Should we
No,
also
not mandatory. Not mandatory. Could you pass on the pen is formal enough. You don't have to add, could you please pass on the pen. Some people tend to use please because they think that please is a very polite thing to do. But strictly speaking, in conversations, you could simply be done with, could you give me the pen? Could you give me the pen? Is formal enough for a English speaker. Okay, in the Indian context, we're just not happy with these kind of uses. We tend to make it more polite by adding please. But from a communicative point of view, please is not extremely necessary. Could you pass on the pen is a well-defined polite statement.
But also the case is, maybe I'm going a bit tangent. I also tend to see people saying thank you very much. This very is essential here.
No. Thank you is well and good. Okay. See, these are all various expressions that people come up with when they think they need to add some kind of flavor or variety to how they speak, right? So thank you very much is again not something that is absolutely required, but not wrong, because these are considered more as idiolectic expressions. Some people tend to use things like this more than others, right? Some people would simply stop at thanks, and again, in the Indian context, people have judgments about it. So some people would say just a thanks is not polite enough. So thank you very much, or thank you from the bottom of my heart. Okay. So all of these things are again idiosyncratic. It differs from people to people how they want to express themselves. But from a grammatical point of view or from the communicative point of view, these are fillers. These are just details that you're adding for no reason. But people don't take too much of offense at it because it's okay. People would consider that as a stylistic expression. It's okay, but not necessary. Okay?
Because I was also thinking from a formal letter when we write, I see whether can I use very much is the formal way on.
No.
Could you please is a formal way.
No. Please keep it down. You can simply say thank you, or thanks and regards, or even simply a thanks should work. You don't have to say thank you very much and all that.
Other thing is the best regards, which I see that.
Best regards is like a common expression that we use now, which is okay. But these days people will even sign it saying best, or some people would simply say regards. They are all formal expressions. There's nothing wrong in using any one of them.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so that is the story of could. Now, next one is will, right? So will is I won't say problematic, but then will is a bit of a confusing model verb because will has also other functions, right? So our introduction to will is mostly as a future tense marker, right? So when I say I will go home tomorrow, you basically indicating a time frame reference, right? So our familiarity with will as a verb is more as something that indicates a future tense marker, right? But as a model verb, will has at least 3 functions to perform. The first one in that is called intention. Okay, to show intention. Now, all these sentences that you will see under the category of will as a modal verb may look like, these are future tense sentences. Okay, unless specified, right? But the difference between both is one shows a time frame reference, obviously, and the other one acts as a modal verb. Firstly, to show intention. So, can you give me a sentence? I'll give you the sentence, but can you try and give me a sentence which shows will in the form of intention in a sentence? I will meanwhile type the sentence, but let me see if you have any sentence.
I will give her what she deserved.
I will give her what she deserves. Intention. The sentence you keep with you. We'll come back to this sentence. This is a good sentence, but not for intention. Look at this one. I will finish the work. Okay. So does this sentence look like, something that shows future time, or does it show, more than future tense? This looks like someone's intent to do something. What do you think?
Intention.
No, don't tell me just because I asked you. You look at the sentence closely and tell me, is this a sentence which gives you, is the more prominent meaning that emerges out of the sentence that of a future time reference? Do you think so, if you look at that sentence? Is it very clear that, we are talking about a future event or anything? I guess no, right? Or do you think otherwise?
No, ma'am.
Even though it sounds like a future thing, but the will actually turns the whole
Yeah. Right, you look at the sentence closely. I will finish the work is not a, strictly speaking, it's not like a future time reference, right? But it shows more of an intention to do something. So I will finish the work. This is the intention of the speaker, the intent of the speaker to get something done. Okay, so these kind of sentences, when will appears in a framework like this is more of, this is used as a modal verb rather than your future tense marker. There could be overlaps here and there because of the, because of the fact that will is commonly used to show future tense reference for us, right? Most of our first introduction to will is as a future tense reference. So it will take us a little bit of time to, come out of that. But just look at the sentence closely and see if its usage is strictly as that of a future tense marker or as a modal verb. In this case, to show intention. Now, something that Ananya told me, that sentence was, I will give what you deserve. Was it that? I'll give you what you deserve.
Yes, ma'am, kind of. I said her
You
instead
said,
of you. I will give
oh,
her what she
okay, I will
deserves.
give her what she deserves. Now, you tell me, what is the flavor of the sentence? I will give her what she deserves. Again, does this sound like a future tense sentence? I will give her what she deserves. Is that the prominent meaning that emerges out of this? I will give her what she deserves.
Not time, maybe.
Not time. Then what is it?
A promise or something.
Okay. So this could either be treated as a promise, but if you change your tone slightly, this is also what can look like a threat. Okay. I will give her what she deserves. If this is the tone, then it is more like a threat. If you're simply making it as an indicative statement, I will give her what she deserves, they can sound, like you said, as a promise, right? This could emerge as a promise. So this is the second function of um, the modal verb will. Okay, so will to show intention, will to show promise or threat, and I think there's one more category under this, which is prediction, right? So can you give me a sentence in prediction with will?
It will rain.
It will rain. Okay. Now, how would you differentiate this with the future tense marker? How will you, is there anybody who thinks that this can be read as a future tense marker also? It will rain.
Yes, because there is a kind of certainty that is associated there.
There is a kind of communication of time. Like it will rain. When you say it will rain, it does give you a little bit of, not maybe too much, but it still gives you some kind of a time frame reference, right? So kind of, it gives you a flavor of future tense marker. So this sentence I don't think will be like a good one to deal with, right? Or is it the case that when we use will as a future tense marker, we are also making prediction? What do you think? Future tense marker, when you use will as a future tense marker, are we making predictions?
I think it,
Yes, yeah. Yeah, because predictions are what? Predictions all they they assume future time, right? If I'm saying I'm predicting something, I'm talking about something that has to happen later on, which is in the future time, right? So prediction in this sense is more like a when you use will as a verb which shows prediction, then it is not what? It is not a modal verb. If it is making prediction, then you are going to put it under the future tense marker category, right? So in that sense, you have then three secondary functions that the will perform as a modal verb. First one, intention. Second, promise. And third is threat. Okay. Now you can ask, what is the core meaning? How do I know what is, like in the case of could and can and all, what would be the core meaning for will? What do you think is the core meaning for will? Which one do you think it is? Is it promise, threat, or is it intention?
I mean, it will rain.
Intention. Okay, intention is what the core meaning for will would be, right? So for can it was ability, for could it was general possibility, for will it is going to be intention, and your secondary meanings would be that of making a promise and a threat. Okay, prediction will not be counted under the category for will as a modal verb. Prediction is usually in reference to the future time framework.
Ma'am,
Okay.
I think in future AI robot will work instead of humans. This sentence will work as a future tense marker
This
or
is
like,
prediction. No, this is a predictive sentence. So yes, it refers to a future time frame.
okay, ma'am.
Okay. Right. Right. Now, next is the verb would. Okay. Now, would is a very special kind of a modal verb. Okay. They are very commonly used in honorific statements to show extreme formality and politeness. That's one use of would, like in the case of could. But what is the core meaning for would?
Permission?
Is it permission? Let me give you a statement. I think we'll be able to understand it better. Okay. Just look at the chat for that. Sorry.
Imaginary situation in future.
No. Would is something that will have very less to do with future. Uh, I'll just leave the sentence for you. You can take a look at the sentence and tell me what do you think the core meaning for would is. If I were you, I would have left the place immediately.
The possibility.
Possibility, or see, look at that phrase, if I were you, right? If I were you, I would have left. And don't tell me condition, because we are not looking at the truth value problem. We are looking at modalities of expression, right? If I were you, I would have left the place immediately. This is what we refer to as imaginary. Just a second. is acting up today. Okay, imaginary, hypothetical, or unreal. Okay, so if you are expressing a situation that is more imaginary, hypothetical, unreal, then you make use of the modal verb would. Okay, this is the core meaning for the modal verb would. Okay, it can have several other uses, right? One of it being, its use in the highly formal context, but the core meaning always for the use of the modal verb would is going to be in imaginary, hypothetical, or unreal situations, right? Any other uses that you know of?
One is permission for sure.
Permission. Okay, so permission request and all of that. Let's just categorize them under the broader, politeness framework, right? So if you say that something is useful in the politeness framework, then all of this request and refusal and permission and everything would come under that, or making an offer, right? All of these things would be considered as a more formal use of thing. But beyond that. So if you want to understand this in terms of possibility, I think someone told me possibility, right? So if you want to understand would as a possibility, then you can add the word hypothetical to it. You can say hypothetical possibility, right? If you want to talk about hypothetical possibility, then you can use the modal verb would with its core meaning, right? Could is general possibility. This is hypothetical possibility. Right? So that's also one way of.
Desire.
What will be the state of this if I ask would you mind if I move this table a bit away or to the corner? What is
This is politeness, right? This is politeness. This is a straightforward formal register of seeking help or putting forth a request or something. So, okay, all of those kind of expressions which falls under the bracket of request or permission or making an offer, all of that would fall within the bracket of the formality aspects. That's all.
Desire.
You can classify all of them together. Sorry?
Desire.
No, I did not catch you.
Desire.
Desire. Oh, you mean I would like to sort of expressions. Huh. Yeah, to express likes and dislikes also, yes, you can. Use would, yes, that is one domain which you can use. Expression of likes and dislikes. Expression of likes, dislikes, or desires, as you put it. That also is one category, one additional.
Schedule of something like plan. I would go there and something like.
I would go there. No, not that.
But this can also be associated with the kind of orderliness, right? Because I would like you to take this thing along with you or something. There, it's kind of the tone. It's kind of an order fashion.
It's not an imperative there. Again, this forms within the formal domain. I would like you to take this with you. Okay. This is again a formality statement. This is not a command. It's not an imperative statement. Okay. So would does add that flavor to your speech. If you're using would to ask someone to do something, then it is automatically a polite thing. It's considered as something that is more honorific in nature.
Yeah, because we come across sentence, I would rather ask you to do this or something of the kind. So here it's kind of a command at the same time. Again, I do not know whether it based on the hierarchy of the person here it changes. And I don't know how to put it. But
no. These are all considered formal expressions. Formal expressions. Now, whether you meant it as a command or anything, that is that the context will decide. But if you look at the linguistic expression, these all fall within the domains of the formal expression of your like or your dislike or what you want from that person to be done. Okay, so all under the category of polite expressions. Okay, right. Okay, so expression of likes and dislikes. Anything else for would? You can also add along with this another category, willingness, right? When you want to show willingness about something, again you can use would. Okay. I would take up this work, or I would take up this project. I would take up this project, right? It's more like your willingness to take up a task or to do something, right? So willingness is also, these are all, tertiary, secondary expressions of modality with the word would, okay? Since in the speech discourse, we very commonly use such sentences, we tend to categorize them. Even if they are like weaker expressions, we still categorize them because, one of the aspect is also to see that we are able to use the language fluently in conversation, right? And modal verbs figure in, they highly figure in both formal and informal speech and writing, right? So whenever you see something like this, it is necessary that you categorize it so that as learners, you know that, okay, this is one of the uses, even if it is like a tertiary or, a fourth level usage of a fourth level meaning of that word, we still categorize it so that people have an idea that these are the various expressions which you can use along with this particular model verb, right? So willingness is one such thing. This is not something that you need to strictly talk about when you explain the model verb would. But since it's again a very commonly used expression, it's good to have a word on that as well. Okay. Okay, so that is on would. So 4 of them. Next one, let's take up may. May is a very non-problematic modal verb. It has very clear functions to perform. So what do we use may for? What is the function of may?
Permission, possibility.
Yes. So core meaning for may is to show possibility, right? What kind of possibility? High possibility, right? So when you have to express a higher possibility of something, then you use the modal verb may. So let's take the rain example that we were doing now. It may rain, right? It could rain, it may rain, okay? And the partner with may, it might rain, right? It may rain, it might rain, it could rain, right? For speakers of Indian English, right, in our country particularly, and most of the South Asian, South Asian, or just say the countries that took up English or had English as a part of their ecology because of colonization, right? If you look at those kind of Englishes, like say the English spoken in India, or the English spoken in Pakistan for that matter, or the English spoken in other parts of South Asia, the distinction between it may rain, it could rain, it might rain is not very distinct, right? But that's not the case with people who are, English speakers, by which I mean, broadly 3, UK, US, and Australia, these days also Canada and New Zealand, but mainly the first 3, right? For speakers of English from these places who predominantly use English as their primary language, right? All the 3 sentences mean different things, right? The sense that the 3 sentences produce are very different. For us, it looks all the same, because we're like, oh, what's the big difference? We're saying that there's some chance that there will rain, right? But it may rain, it might rain, and it could rain are 3 different, are sentences with 3 different meanings in English, right? So the difference is of the degree of possibility. In the first case, like I said, could, right? Could is just a general expression of possibility. It could rain, okay? I'm not giving you a, I'm not mentioning any particular figurative chance of, whether it would rain or not. But when I say it may rain, what am I saying? That most probably it's going to rain. Right? When someone says it may rain today, what they mean to say is that most probably there are higher chances that there's going to be a precipitation today. Similarly, when someone says it might rain, it shows a very weak chance, right? A very, very low chance of the rainfall to happen, right? So in that sense, there's a variability of degree involved when it comes to may and might. May and might expressing possibility. one showing high possibility and one showing a lower degree of possibility. Okay, so this is the strict difference between both of them. Besides that, both of them don't have any difference between each other, right? Like in the other cases that you saw. May and might, the only difference is the degree, the difference of the degree of possibility that they express. Okay. Might again will not, in certain cases, might can be used to show expression of politeness as secondary meaning, right? May definitely is a very popular word to show honorificity and expression. Where do we use may to show politeness? When do we use? Sorry. When you seek permission, right? So can I go home? Could I go home? May I go home? Which one do you think is the most formal among the three?
May.
May I go home, right? May
May
is
I go home?
extreme formal. Yeah, correct. May is extremely formal, right? When you're talking to maybe not something like, may I go home? Say you are visiting someone at their office and may I come in, right? This is one of the first expressions we learn in schools as well as part of good manners. So seek permission, may I come in? Now, why may here? Because in most of the cases like this, you probably are entering a space that is either restricted or is something that is new to you, or the people there are strangers to you. This is the first time you're seeing them, so you keep it, you keep the formality bar really raised, right, really high. So may is most commonly used to seek permission, make requests, offer something to someone, similar to can, right? All of these functions are performed by can also. The difference is you use may in a highly formal context, right? Expression of may is always highly formal, right? May I help you? Now, what is this? May I help you? Is this permission? No. What is this? You are making an offer, right? You're making an offer. You're making an offer to help someone. May I help you? Or, may I bring you a cup of coffee? May I drop you home? This is not permission. You're making an offer, right? This is the highest uh, formal form of making a request, or sorry, making an offer to someone. Okay, you're requesting something from someone, right? Um, um, will you use may for request? Yeah, we can use may for request as well, right? May I ask you to transfer, or may I request you to transfer the files as early as possible? Now, this is what? This is a clear case of request, right? Again, this is the highest degree of request, right? You can use could also, but could will also be considered a little bit below may, right? May is like the highest one. If you say, could you please send for the file that I requested for, this is also formal, right? But not as formal as the one with me. Okay, so that's the difference. Very simple differences. Okay, so that's the story of may and might. Core meaning for may, a high possibility. Core meaning for might would be, oh, I didn't write might. Core meaning for might would be to show weak possibility, right? Okay. Next comes, so this one is, okay, next we have shall. Now, shall is a model verb in English. In modern English, at least, this is something that has got its use very restricted, right? So it's not as popular as it used to be, say, during the, you know, um, early half of the 19th century, or maybe say towards the end of the 20th century. Shall was like very commonly used, right? It's a very Victorian word. So now we don't use it as commonly as we used to use it before. In modern English, most of the functions that shall performs is taken over by will. Will is able to do most of the functions that shall used to do, right? So we rarely hear people now say I shall, right? It's mostly always I will. Will very easily covers up for whatever function shall used to do. But there is one place where shall is now very, even today, very ardently used, and that's the legal discourse. If you look at the legal files, um, verdicts from the courts and anything that is a legal proceeding, you'll see this word shall figuring in every now and then. The petitioner shall pay an amount of so and so to the complainant, or it is hereby decided that the complaint shall be forwarded. So, in the legal discourse, you see the use of shall a lot. That is one aspect of it, but not as much as in the daily, daily public discourse, right? Not as much. But shall has other functions. So, where else do we use shall? So, if I have a statement like, say, how do I put it? A sentence like, something like, no,
I shall go home now.
I shall go home now. I shall go home now. But can't you say I will go home now? Or if you say replace the shall with will, what do you think would be the difference? I don't see much of a difference. It's the same thing.
It is like I shall overcome.
I shall overcome. You can still say I will overcome. Determination, right? So it's
Ma'am?
the same thing. Yeah, tell me.
Shall will kind of work like opinion, or like that I should do, and will be like I will do, like it's permanent or something.
No. I don't think shall has that function. It is.
For example, shall we meet tomorrow?
Shall we meet tomorrow? Yes, that's a good example. So, what are you using shall here as?
The possibility.
Not possibility. So, shall we meet tomorrow is more like what it is seeking permission, right? Shall. Right? So, see, normally, like I told you before, shall, all the functions that shall was able to perform, or which it used to perform, all of them can be very easily now taken up by will, right? So, even if it is to show determination, you can replace shall with will in that statement. Like if the sentence is that I shall talk to you about the proposal tomorrow, this shows determination. I can easily, change it with will and still make it look like a determined sentence, right? So it's not a problem. Shall is normally used to show very strong obligation, right? Social obligations, right? And obligations particularly, like one of the example is the legal context. So whenever there is a social obligation required, a socially oriented obligation required, people tend to use shall even now. Another one is the one that you mentioned, like shall we meet tomorrow? Now this is more what? This is more like a sort of, something where people are seeking permission. So permission is one thing, and the second use is that of a socially oriented obligation, right? What is socially oriented obligation? So see, sentences like this is from your slide, right? I think it's there on the PPT that's shared with you for the lecture. The doctors who do not abide by the guidelines of IMA for practicing medicine shall have their license revoked with immediate effect. Now, what is this? This is called a socially oriented or a strong obligation set in the socially oriented context, right? Second one from the legal field again, the petitioner shall present an affidavit in regards to the issue submitted to this court. Okay, so something that is more socially, something that strongly you requires strong obligation from your part, strong adherence from your part in the social context, is where you mostly use shall.
The common one is the trespassers shall be prosecuted.
Trespassers shall be prosecuted or punished, right? All of these, something that is more socially binding on you. Okay, to when you want to show or say something to show the person that, see, you have no escape from this. This is more socially binding, right? Obligation, remember, is also used for must, but in the case of must, there is no social obligation. It's common obligation. But shall is more for social obligation, like this, more like community rules and public rules and all that. Okay. So that's a core area where you use shall now, in addition to functions like seeking permission, so on and so forth. Okay. So that's the common use. Have I written it in your chat? Yeah. So shall, the first thing would be to show socially binding obligations. Okay. Socially binding obligations. Additional meanings would also be to seek permission. So when you seek permission using shall, is it formal or less formal? Shall we meet tomorrow? Is it formal or less formal?
It's fun.
Formal, right? More formal, right? More formal. Seek, okay, seek more formal permissions. Okay. So these are the two more commonly used expressions for shall. Okay, next is should. Should. You should
It's
obey
command.
what your teacher says. You should obey what your teacher says.
Command.
This sentence is not in terms of command, but let's see if we can use it for command. So when I'm saying you should obey what your teacher says, is this obligation or is it, something else? Does it sound like obligation?
It's expectation.
Weak obligation, right? So weak form of obligation. You should listen to your parents, or you should obey your teachers, right? Weaker obligation, right? It's not like, you have to, like this is compulsory, but this is a weaker form of obligation, or in other sense, you can also say this is so weak in its obligatory command that it sounds almost like a suggestion. It's like, yeah, you should listen to your teacher, right? So this sounds more like a suggestion, but the statement is more like a weaker obligation statement. To use it as a suggestion, I think we need to have another sentence. You should think about applying for this job. Okay? You should think about applying for this job. Okay, I'm not writing the sentence. So you should think about applying for this job. Suggestion, right? More clearly a suggestion, right? You should obey your teachers. Again, there is a flavor of obligation here, but a very weak obligation, right? It's not a strong obligation, like you see in the case of shall, right? Shall is a more stronger socially binding obligation, but should is like a weak obligation, right? And more importantly, should is something that you use to indicate suggestion. So, suggestion or advice, right? Suggestion, advice. These are the most commonly used meanings with should. Okay. So, if you're looking for core meaning for should, then you can go ahead and say that suggestion or advice should be the core meaning suggested. In addition to that, you can have a weak obligation, right? So these are two areas where, or two expressions that should can communicate. Okay, I don't think there's anything else beyond that. Anything that you think is a part of this? No, I think that's all. Nothing more than that. Okay. Now the last one here is going to be must. Okay, so must. How is must different from, if you, nobody will ask you a question because you don't have a scope for descriptive answers, but in case you get these options in the same question, then you should know how shall, should, and must are different from each other in terms of obligation, right? So shall and should we already discussed that should shows a very weak form of obligation. Shall shows a more socially binding, it's stronger obligation, but particularly in the socially binding domains, right? Like when you're talking about community rules and regulations and all that. What is the status of must?
High possibility.
No, must is again something that you use for
Necessity.
obligation.
Command.
Necessity and obligation. That's absolutely right. Right.
Yes.
But how is must obligation different from shall and should? Is my question.
It's high obligation.
It's a general but strong obligation.
So must can be used for different kinds of obligation, right? So if you had paid attention to the lecture, must can be used to show weaker obligations also, right? Must can be used to show social obligations. Must can be used to show non-personal forms of obligations also. Okay, so let's look at few examples. I'm going to take the questions, the sentences that we have from uh, the slide itself, right? So we'll come to necessity, right? Necessity is the core meaning. Okay. Somebody mentioned that already. I should have noted it down. Obligations I took up because it could be confusing since there are other modal verbs with that. Must, the core meaning is that of necessity. Example. Can you give me a sentence?
You must do the homework.
You will? No, we're discussing must, no? Sentence must for to show necessity.
We must adhere to the rules.
We must adhere to the rules, okay?
Doing homework is must.
Yeah, doing the homework is a must, okay? But here must is not used as a modal verb. It's used as a different parts of speech.
Necessity.
See, you take up only simple sentences. No, so you say, I am going to give you a deadline for something, right? You must finish the assignment by EOD. Okay, so end of the day, you must finish the assignment by the D is missing. Sorry, the end of the day, right? So this is what this doesn't this sound like a sentence that shows necessity? So this is necessitating. It's setting you a rule saying that it is necessary that. So if I want to reframe this sentence, I will write it as it is necessary that you finish the assignment by the end of the day. Okay, this is how I'll rewrite this sentence if I have to explain this. So these are situations where must is used as a modal verb that shows necessity, and that is its core meaning. The core function of must is to show necessity, right? Additional function includes obligation of three kinds. Okay, three kinds of obligations. One, weak obligations. Second one, non-personal obligations, and the third one is social obligations. Okay, so I'm going to give you examples from all the three, and you need to figure it out. How do they become weak, non-personal, and social obligations? The first one, I'm going to take it from your this itself. What is that called? The PPT that we use for the lectures, right? So say a sentence like, I must clean the room. Okay, you're going to tell me what form of obligation this is. I must clean. I'll do these three sentences and then we'll close for today. So next week when you come back, we can do the activities, right? I will do the worksheet. I wanted to spend some time explaining the core meanings to you so that you're clear on that. I must clean the room today. This is your first sentence. Second sentence would be, second one would be, submissions should follow the guidelines as, not should, must follow the guidelines as instructed in the manual. This is your second sentence. And the third one is I am going to Delhi. I must visit our family friends. Okay, so 3 sentences. Now, among the 3 that you have here, which one do you think expresses weak obligation? Which one do you think is a more non-personal obligation? And which one do you think is social obligation?
First one is weak obligation, because you are saying that to yourself, like no one is forcing you to do the
Yes.
room work.
Correct. That's right. Right. The first one is a weak obligation. I must clean the room is something that this is what you call as self-imposed obligation. Okay. Self-imposed obligation. You can, if you want, make a note of that. Self-imposed. So any obligation that is self-imposed is a weaker form of obligation, right? Because there is no monitoring system there. It's not like someone there's going to be any penalty if you don't do that. I mean, penalty is that you are going to live in an unclean environment. It's your loss. Nobody has anything to do with that. So statements like this, I must clean the room today, these are examples of weaker self-imposed forms of obligations. Okay. Now, second statement, submissions must follow the guidelines as instructed in the manual.
Social obligation.
Okay, is it social? There is no element of social in this.
It's high obligation, like you should follow. Like someone is
You should follow, submissions must follow the guidelines as instructed in the manual. Okay, to some extent, but this is also what we call as this is a stronger form of obligation, you're right, but this is also what? This is a non-personal form of obligation, okay? Okay, stronger, but again, a very non-personal kind of obligation, right? So why is it called non-personal? Because these are warnings and rules, but then this does not involve any human performers, right? So this is not like you shall not trespass or trespassers must be, sorry, not that one. Rules and regulations in terms of shall, right? Trespassers shall be punished. This was again obligation, socially binding obligation, right? Included humans. But when it comes to must, you have a non-personal form of obligation which does not include any human performers. So look at the statement, right? Submissions must follow the guidelines as instructed in the manual. Okay, so this is like a more generic statement. We are not, of course, there are some. This is meant for human performers, but the expression itself does not carry any human performer. Okay, got this? And the last one is what? That is the social obligation, right? Which is I'm going to Delhi, I must visit our family friends. So is this strong or is this weak? I'm going to Delhi. Is it strong or weak? This is weak. Again, this is not binding, right? There is a social obligation, but it's not like it is a strong social obligation. Unlike the, the one with shall. Remember, trespassers shall be prosecuted, right? Or practicing doctors without a license shall be, the doctors without, doctors who do not adhere to the guidelines shall have their license revoked, right? So this is what? This is social obligation, but very strong form of social obligation. This is with shall, but with must, the social obligation is again a weaker form. Okay, so take a look at this shall and must a little bit, because there are overlapping meanings here. The difference is only between which one is strong and which one is weak and all that, right? So have at least one sentence written with each of it and like a bit of an explanation for this, so that you don't go wrong with them, right? Any confusions as of now? I know the obligation part could be like a little overwhelming, but that is because you haven't taken a closer look at it. Any question that you have about this as of now? Anybody? Ananya, Sridhar, several others. I cannot see.
No, ma'am.
No?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I have
Hi.
something. Like when we talk about the will part, where the will is something again, I know that it is happening against the will is basically a shorter form of willingness. So is the regular will and the shorter form of will is the same here in some cases? It's happening against will, or what do they actually want to infer? Because I know it's full form of will is willingness there, but but why do I mean some words in English are kind of when they are when they are actually what do you call it gives a different meaning altogether.
Will and willingness, I mean, in terms of its usage, I think both means the same if it is in this context. But there could be like a different. See, will is more like a the expression willingness. Um, it could be, again, like the differences of degree, right? So in willingness, it is more about the your readiness or your say your openness to do something. It's not about do you have high willingness or low willingness. It's like a more general word, right? So there is no strong how do I put it? It's not like it's absolutely necessary for you. You just have some willingness to do something, right? But when you say will, like I have the will to do something, then it shows your desire. It shows a very strong desire on your part to do that, right? So difference is just a tad bit of a degree. In willingness, it is more general, okay? And I say I have the willingness to participate in this exhibition means that you're open to it, right? I think the right word to use is open. I'm open to participating. It's not like it's extremely necessary, but I'm open to doing that. I have a willingness, right? I'm not against it. But when you say will, it means that you're determined, you're very strong, you have very strong desire to do that. That's probably, I think, something that I can think of. I don't know if it is anything beyond that.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Kim Raj, right? You asked that question. Okay. All right. Okay. So if that's the case, I would like you to make if you have not already done that, it would be nice if you can make a note of these examples and sentences that we used here. This will act like a reference point for you when you're revising or practicing with these, because model verbs, they look very easy, but because of their meanings can be quite slippery when it comes to their usage in the Indian English context. And because of the interference of Indian English usages of model verb, people often commit errors in both speech and writing when it comes to the actual English discourses, right? Especially when you're writing in formal discourses of English. So keep these sentences as a reference point so that you can take a look at them every time you are confused about what exactly the use of this model verb is, right? Um, so I would suggest you to either take a snap of this, or if you've already been noting this down, then well and good. Okay. So these are the 9 core model auxiliaries, and with their core meaning and secondary meanings. Please know the core meanings for each of them and certain additional meanings that each of them offer. Okay. If you know this much, then it should be more than enough. Certainly, there could be more meanings that you can add to it. We have only discussed the most commonly known expressions of these model verbs. Okay. So it's entirely possible that you come up with something where you say, oh, would is also used for this. That's all right. Like I mentioned, it could have secondary, tertiary, 4th level, 5th level meanings. So whenever you find something like that, just make a recording of that. For you, what is more important is to know what the core expression is, what the core meaning expressed is. Okay. So make a note of these things there then. Right. So if you don't have any more questions, then I think we can close for today. Next week, we'll take up the worksheet and see if we are able to apply what we learned here. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. See you next week again.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.